And this one, let's do the following. Print 3 stars followed by 2 followed by 1 using for loops. So we're going to type for int I is equal to 3 because initially there are 3 here. And then you're going to say I is greater than or equal to 1 because at the end there's 1. And then you're decreasing from 3 to 2 to 1. You're going to say I minus minus. And then int j is equal to 1. And then semicolon. And then you can say j is less than or equal to I. Why? Because you see at first I has the value 3. So this logical condition here with I set to 3 will just basically execute whatever follows the inner for loop 3 times at first. And then it goes from within this row, right? First index, second index, third index, so to speak. 3 entries within the row. Okay. So for that reason, I'm going to type j++. So the inner loop controls what's happening within a row. The outer loop controls what's happening to the rows. You go down the rows with the outer loop and then across each row within the row with the inner loop. You need 2 different loops. And then you can just print something like console.write and then put the star in there between double quotes. You can just use write. That's the one that doesn't push down to the next line. Now lastly, look what happens here. So run this. Start with the debugging, Control F5. Well, you see the issue is all the stars here are in a single row. We don't want that. So terminate this. Okay. So that means after you've printed each row of stars, you need to push down to the next row. So that means you got to do something like console.write line at the bottom here, like that. That will push the cursor to the next row. So look very carefully. Debug, start without debugging. Let this run. Now, as you can see, you have, as I said, 3 stars followed by 2 stars followed by a single star on the screen. Terminate. Terminate. Okay, that's about that. Now, here, let's say that I change where it says I equals 3 to 2 for the sake of simplicity. What happens in this case? We'll run it. Debug, start without debugging. So now it gives you 2 stars followed by a single star. Let's go through this a little bit with the step into feature so you understand the purpose of each for loop more clearly. So step into this loop. So you see it initializes I to have the value 2. Then it checks, is 2 greater than or equal to 1, that's true. And then it takes you to the inner loop, you see this? Now, j is equal to 1, well, is 1 less than or equal to the current value of I, which is 2 from the loop above, okay? All right, so that's 2. So now look, you see it's going to run console.write. It's going to do j++. It's going to check the logical condition in the inner for loop. It's going to run console.write. It's going to do j++. It's going to check the logical condition in the inner for loop, which fails. So now, as you can see, console.write line runs. It runs only once after the inner for loop has executed and gone through its iterations. And then it hits the curly brace and goes all the way back to the top of the loop. I minus minus. Now look, is that greater than or equal to 1? That's true. So it goes back into the inner for loop. The inner for loop generates the stars within a row. The outer for loop, one more time, goes through the rows. You see? J. And then you execute this a whole bunch of times. Again, it hits console.write line. Goes all the way to the outer for loop. It checks the logical condition, which fails, and it goes all the way to the curly brace that closes the body of main. Shut this down. So this is how you can generate a star arrangement like this one.